Some mysteries have captivated the globe with fascination, terror, and innumerable unsolved questions throughout history. From the tranquil farmlands of Bavaria to the murky streets of Whitechapel, from predators hidden in plain sight to cryptic killers leaving clues, these tales continue to serve as terrifying reminders of the darker side of human nature. Come explore the underlying themes of 5 eerie cases: the Golden State Killer's reign of terror, the Axeman of New Orleans, the Hinterkaifeck murders, the Zodiac Killer's cryptic messages, and the mystery of Jack the Ripper. The same question is brought up by each of these tales: what motivates someone to carry out such horrible deeds? And how did they avoid punishment for so long? We delve deeply into the past, the supporting data, and the terrifying unsolved questions tonight. Do these stories of terror and intrigue contain undiscovered clues, or are they doomed to remain unsolved mysteries? Let's go out on our adventure into the unknown. Too few names have captured the public's psyche with as much fear and intrigue as that of the Zodiac Killer. Between late 1960s and the early 1970s, this elusive predator terrorized Northern California, leaving horror and mystery. The spree of the Zodiac started in December 1968, when 2 teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were brutally murdered on a quiet road in Benicia. But the terror really began when the killer started sending taunting letters to local newspapers. Each one contained a puzzle, a cryptic message crafted from strange symbols and letters. These ciphers were not words but riddles meant to confuse, terrify, and provoke. The first cipher was sent in 1969 and was a 408-character message spread across 3 newspapers. It claimed to reveal the killer's identity if solved. When a school teacher and his wife cracked the code, a message unfolded, revealing twisted motives of the Zodiac. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." But then it stopped where it couldn't give a name for himself. Here was one playing a game on whom he controlled. One of the most infamous ciphers, the 340-character code, remained unsolved for over 50 years. It wasn't until December 2020 that a team of amateur cryptographers cracked it, revealing another chilling message. The Zodiac taunted authorities, saying, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me." Despite this breakthrough, the killer's identity remained a mystery. The Zodiac sent at least 21 letters in total, along with coded messages and disturbing threats. Some included diagrams of bombs he claimed to have built, and others mocked the police for their inability to stop him. Each communication deepened the mystery surrounding his motives and his identity. Despite extensive investigations, countless theories, and even confessions from hoaxers, the Zodiac Killer was never caught. Many believe his cryptic messages hold the key to solving the case, but decades later, questions still linger. Was he a genius playing mind games, or was the truth hidden in plain sight all along? One thing for sure, though, the messages that the Zodiac was supposed to have sent keep taunting investigators and crime lovers forever. Maybe someday, the truth will come out. For now, his ciphers stay as a creepy reminder of a killer who ruled the game. Do you believe the Zodiac had secret messages in his communications? Tell us in the comments section below. In the shadowy streets of early 20th century New Orleans, a specter of fear stalked the city. He went by only one name, the Axeman, and left in his wake a trail of brutally murdered people and an unsavory letter that has haunted history. Who was this phantom, and what led him to terrorize a city with his axe? The Axeman started his killing spree in May 1918 when Joseph and Catherine Maggio were found murdered in their home. The weapon? An axe that belonged to the couple, a grim signature that would become the killer's calling card. Over the course of the next year, the Axeman continued to attack, targeting Italian-American families, mostly grocers, at night. He did not leave fingerprints, any clear motive, or witnesses. The only evidence he left behind was his victims, the broken doors he had entered through, and the axes he used. But it was his chilling letter, sent to a local newspaper in March 1919, that cemented his place in infamy. Signed the Axeman of New Orleans, the letter claimed he was a demon from hell, thirsting for blood. Yet, it also contained an eerie twist, a bizarre demand. "I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing." On the night of March 19, 1919, New Orleans erupted in music. Jazz bands played throughout the city's homes, bars, and dance halls. The Axeman terrified hearts, yet no one was killed that night. Did the music actually appease him, or was this all part of his twisted game? The Axeman was one of the most baffling figures in true crime history. Was this deranged serial killer demented enough to have had a fascination with jazz, or was this a person who targeted Italian immigrants for particular reasons? Or, more sinisterly, some believed a supernatural figure living off on chaos and fear? Despite all the theories, the Axeman disappeared as mysteriously as he emerged. His last known attack was in October 1919, and after that, New Orleans was finally able to sleep without fear of his axe. But the legend he left behind lives on, a haunting reminder of the terror that gripped the city over a century ago. Who was the Axeman of New Orleans? A cold-blooded killer, a jazz-obsessed maniac, or something far more sinister? Perhaps we'll never know. But the unanswered questions keep his shadow alive in the annals of unsolved crimes. Have your own theory about the Axeman? Share it in the comments below. It was a cold March night in 1922, and one of the most heinous and inexplicable crimes in history was to be played out on a remote German farm. The Hinterkaifeck murder shocked the world and left investigators haunted by questions that remain unanswered to this day. The story starts with the Gruber family, who lived isolated on a quiet farmstead in Bavaria. Andreas Gruber, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her two children, 7-year-old Kazilia and 2-year-old Joseph, made up the household. Alongside them was their maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had just arrived on the farm the very day tragedy struck. In the days before the murder, Andreas Gruber had begun noticing strange things: footprints in the snow leading toward the house but none going away, strange noises coming from the attic, and missing keys. All these sinister signs were ignored, too late. On the night of March 31, 1922, the entire family, including their maid, was brutally murdered. The killer lured each victim into the barn one by one, where they were struck down with a mattock, a farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The youngest victim, Joseph, was killed in his crib. Several days later, horrified neighbors discovered the scene. What shocked police and authorities was that the killer apparently lived in the house after he murdered the family members, as he tended to the cattle, ate food from the kitchen, and even had fires lit in the hearth. Despite extensive investigations, the case yielded no definitive answers. Over 100 suspects were questioned, including former farmhands and neighbors with alleged grudges, but no one was ever charged. The weapon, a mattock, was found hidden in the attic, but it offered no clues to the killer's identity. Theories only continued to create more mystery surrounding the Hinterkaifeck murders. Was this a crime of passion? Perhaps a passion that relates to the supposed relationships with Victoria? It could be robbery, in which nothing of value was taken? Or was this the act of a psychopath who wandered off into the night? More than a century since the forensic breakthroughs came, this case still remains a mystery to be solved. With the renewed interest in the crime and modern forensic techniques, the Hinterkaifeck murders have become one of the scariest unsolved cases in history. Who could have murdered the Gruber family and why? Is it perhaps buried in frozen soil, forever out of our reach? But true crime aficionados and investigators do not stop haunting the legend of this gruesome night. What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck? Share your theories in the comments below. It haunted California's neighborhoods for over a decade, turning peaceful suburban homes into scenes of unimaginable terror. Known by many names, the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker, and eventually, the Golden State Killer, this elusive criminal left in its wake a trail of fear, destruction, and unanswered questions. The Golden State Killer's reign of terror started in the mid-1970s, beginning as a prolific burglar who graduated to far darker crimes. First known as the East Area Rapist, he raped over 50 women in Northern California. His modus operandi was calculated and chilling, breaking into homes, binding his victims, and subjecting them to hours of psychological and physical torment. His signature was haunting. He often called his victims before and after his attacks, whispering threats and taunting them with the knowledge that he could return at any time. In one recorded call, he chillingly repeated the words, "I'm going to kill you." His crimes escalated to a darker level in the 1980s. The Golden State Killer started killing his victims, and he became known as the original Night Stalker. He killed at least 13 people between 1979 and 1986, targeting couples in their homes, using their belongings to tie and gag them before killing them. For whatever reason, the Golden State Killer simply disappeared in 1986. This case would go unsolved for decades and become perhaps one of the most infamous crimes in American criminal history. But it was not a mystery after all. It was finally in 2018 when the breakthrough came. The investigators identified Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer, using DNA evidence and genealogical research as the Golden State Killer. DeAngelo, at 72 years of age, was arrested and ended the decades of fear and speculations. In 2020, DeAngelo pleaded guilty to 13 murders and admitted to dozens of other crimes. He received a sentence of life in prison without parole, but his arrest raised important questions about justice, closure, and the evolution of forensic science. The capture of the Golden State Killer brought some closure to his victims and their families. Survivors who had lived in fear for decades were finally able to face the man who had stolen so much from them. Yet, his crimes remain a stark reminder of how darkness can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. Joseph DeAngelo is the end of one of America's longest-running manhunts. The scars he has left behind and the stories of those who survived are, however, not ever going to be forgotten. History has witnessed a chilling tale of the Golden State Killer, but it is also a testament to the fact that the persistence of those who were unwilling to let him escape forever is a fact. What are your thoughts on the Golden State Killer case? Let us know in the comments below. Autumn 1888, London's East End. Fear gripped the streets. A brutal killer stalked the alleys of Whitechapel, leaving behind a legacy of terror and mystery. Known only as Jack the Ripper, this shadowy figure remains one of the most infamous and elusive criminals in history. Jack the Ripper started his campaign of terror in August 1888. He murdered at least 5 women, all of them poverty-stricken, in Whitechapel, in the space of some few months. The names of the victims are familiar to every reader. They are known as the Ripper's canonical victims: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. The method was brutal and terrifying, as the killer targeted women in the dead of night, slashing their throats before mutilating the body with surgical precision. The shocking nature of the crimes led many to believe that the Ripper had medical knowledge or anatomy skills. Despite the most thorough investigations, the Metropolitan Police were unable to trace the killer. Letters purporting to be from Jack the Ripper started flooding the newspapers and police stations. One arrived signed from hell, with a piece of human kidney, further inflaming public hysteria. I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. The other piece I fried and ate. It was very nice. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Whether these letters were genuine or the work of hoaxers, they only added to the Ripper's dark legend. The killings by the Ripper abruptly stopped as they began and, to this day, remain unsolved. Thousands of suspects have been proposed since the incidents: local butchers, surgeons, even members of the royal family. Yet, despite countless theories, no definitive evidence has ever identified the man or woman behind those crimes. New technology has provided new insights into the case in recent years. DNA testing on a scarf that was linked to one of the victims revealed the involvement of a Polish barber named Aaron Kosminski. However, the evidence remains controversial, and the case continues to create debate among historians and true crime enthusiasts. Jack the Ripper's identity may be forever buried, but he changed the face of the world and how murder investigations are now viewed. More than 130 years later, the legend of the Ripper remains a dark shadow over Whitechapel's darkened streets. Who do you think Jack the Ripper was? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into the world's darkest mysteries. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.